What's up, guys? Neil Orfield here to talk a little Sorare NBA. While you're coming in, please do like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification button so you can get alerts when our shows go live. I'm sure if you haven't seen these shows by now, you probably don't know that we are an authorized partner of Sorare NBA. And if you use the link in the description of this video, when you make 5 purchases of cards on the market on Sorare, you will get a sixth limited card for free. The limited cards are pretty awesome cards. Those are the contests that I play primarily. Those limited contests. Each card is numbered to 5,000. They live on the Ethereum blockchain, so you can track exactly how many of them are in circulation at any given time. I really like the limited contest and limited cards. So sign up using the link in the description. You will get a sixth card for free when you make 5 card purchases on the blockchain. Also, because we are a partner with Sorare, we have great Sorare projections on our website, and that's what I have open here, the stochastic Sorare projections. I'll go over these a little bit. These are, of course, the projections for the slate that starts tonight. It is a Monday through Friday slate. I should say Monday through Thursday slate. So each week you essentially get 2 slates, the Monday through Thursday slate and then the Friday through Sunday slate. This is the Monday through Thursday slate starting tonight. And I'll go over exactly what we have here. So obviously player, you know what the player is. Projection is just what we project the player for. And what's neat about our projections is this is the player's projection for their best game in a given period. So you can see most of the players here have 2 games in this period, Anthony Davis being the exception. He only has 1. But our projection actually accounts for the better matchup, the game where we're anticipating the player scoring more fantasy points. So that's pretty unique to Stochastic that we can project multiple games out. And that's what we have here. So you can see how each player projects in their better game during this period. And of course, the way Sorare is scored, a player does get their better of the scores from that period, whichever game they do better in. Last 10 average is essentially the player's salary. If you're not familiar with how Sorare works, I'll show you on the here are the competitions starting tonight. I've already entered a few of them, but you can see these are the cap is essentially the salary cap, but the salary is the player's last 10 average. It's how they've done over their last 10 games, their average fantasy points per game. Um, and then you have to essentially stay under the cap. And in some of these contests, like the limited champion contest, the primary contest that I play, there is also an MVP spot. So you pick 5 players, but the MVP spot does not count against your salary cap. So then it's just the average of the remaining 4 has to stay under this 120 score. The limited contender is different because there actually is no MVP spot, and you have to stay under 110 fantasy points. So you get just 22 per player here, whereas in this one you get the MVP spot and then 30 per player last 10 average. So it's pretty interesting. But in our Sorare projections, so the projection is just the player's projection in their better of the 2 games. Last 10 average this is actually taken from the player cards on Sorare. You can see what a player's last 10 average is, and this is essentially their salary for entering that contest. The value is just the differential there. So you can see here the best value on the slate is Tyus Jones. That's because he's taken over for Ja Morant, who was out indefinitely for the Grizzlies. Now Tyus Jones suddenly is the starting point guard for the Grizzlies. He only has a last 10 average of 15 fantasy points. We're projecting him for 41 fantasy points. He's a really slam dunk value here, one of the best values, if not the best value that we've seen in the couple months that I've been looking at these. One of the better values we've seen. So Tyus Jones, an absolute smash value just because his projection for this period in the better of the 2 games is a lot better than his last 10 average. Obviously, Kelly Oubre, same kind of situation, benefiting from LaMelo Ball being out. He gets a boost. Spencer Dinwiddie changed teams. His last 10 average still doesn't reflect his new role. James Wiseman, same thing. So we have a lot of really nice values here. And then L7 limited, L7 rare, L7 elite. That's just the average price of these players' cards over that period. Of course, that is not guaranteed. It just kind of gives you an idea of how much it's going to cost you to buy a card. So, for example, how I use that primarily is I look at today. I looked at our projections and I said, okay, I had just sold my Damian Lillard, and I was thinking, all right, among the top projected guys, because I only had Luca among the really high projected guys and Anthony Davis down here, who else could I buy up here that projects really well? And I had 3 players who project, for 60 fantasy points. I went back and bought a new Damian Lillard after I had just sold one earlier in the week, because he still just looks great, projects really well, and doesn't cost all that much for a player who projects for 60 fantasy points. So kind of a nice little way to gauge approximately how much a player is going to cost. The games, as I mentioned earlier, is just how many games a player has in the period. So that's the general rundown of our projections. How I'm using them on this slate. On any given slate, I usually take a pretty stars and scrubsy approach. So if you're playing optimally here, because Nikola Jokic is the top projected player on the slate, you would play him in that MVP spot. You'd buy a Nikola Jokic, slide him into that MVP spot, because for the MVP spot, you don't care about the value, you don't care about the last 10 average. So whoever is the best projected player on a given slate, that's always going to be the optimal MVP. So in this case, that would be Nikola Jokic. But for me, I went out and I just bought a Damian Lillard project close enough for me, and he's significantly cheaper to get into my lineup. So I went out and bought a Lillard for that MVP spot, and then I'm playing multiple contests. I had a Luka Doncic, would have played him there, but he is also eligible for the limited under 23 contest. That's just players under 23 years old as of January 31st, I believe is what I was told the date was. Kind of funny. Luca is actually 24 years old now, but still eligible here because of that deadline in January. So able to play Luca in that under 23 contest. So decided to play him there instead of here. So for me, I had Damian Lillard. I already had Anthony Davis, who's nice kind of little value. So I thought I could slide him right into a lineup. But then from there, so I'm typically choosing one, real stud to be the MVP, one of the top projected plays. Then I can usually find somebody else, kind of on this first page who projects pretty well. Usually you can still find somebody who's a nice value as well. So that's usually how I found my second player. But then I also fill in with, I just look at the value column, and Tyus Jones is just the best play on the slate here. So I went out and got myself a Tyus Jones, put him in there. Already had an Oubre from last week, still projects really well. Got myself a Dinwiddie. So a lot of good projected players here. So again, typically my approach is, I'd say it's more like I find the top projected player on the slate, or the top projected player who I'm going to play to put in the MVP spot. Then I go to the value column and see what I have there. Slide in these 3 players, or choose a number of players, and then see what salary I have left, and put in the best player I can find there. So Greg and I actually just did that on a live show, but that's the general approach. And you can make some really nice lineups that way. Typically, you're trying to use the full salary cap and just use players with great value while using that full salary cap. If you really want to optimize your lineup, that has been my approach. It's continued to work really well for me. I cashed a few more contests over the past. We opened 5 new cards on the last show, on the live show with Greg, and that's over the past week. Won 5 cards using our projection. So they have been very successful. Still have not quite landed in that top 3 spot where you get a tier 1 rare card in the limited champion contest. Haven't gotten to that peak, but I've got tier 2 rare card, gotten close enough to the top in just a few months that I've been playing and using our projections. So highly recommend using our projections. And of course, if we get more news between now and lock, the projections can change. More value might open up. So you don't necessarily have to lock in your lineups, up until last minute before lock. Sometimes you can find great value pretty late. So that is going to be my approach to this slate. Hope you can find some success using a similar approach. Good luck.